Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Paranormal News. Tonight's article comes from foxnews.com and the headline is Florida's Bigfoot. Residents share their sightings of massive skunk ape. Within a week, I had 5 Bigfoot hunters from all over the country staying at my house, one witness recalls. It was written by Katie Perry. This is C-A-T-I-E, not K-A-T I-E or E-Y or however the hell Katy Perry spells her name. So it's not the same person. Stories of the skunk ape, sometimes called Florida's Bigfoot, have been around for years. 2 Sarasota residents described their sightings of the creature and their efforts to find out more about it on a new episode of Fox Nation's Monsters Across America. In the episode, Sarasota native Mike Falconer recounts seeing the skunk ape in a field by the side of the road in 2013. You could see that it was big, he tells Fox Nation's Casey McDonald. And when I say big, I don't mean 8 foot tall. You could just tell it was massive in size and thickness, just large. Not only was the sighting unexpected, but Falconer was also surprised by what happened after he uploaded his photos to the internet. My office started getting phone calls, people asking for me, he recalls. Within a week, I had 5 Bigfoot hunters from all over the country staying at my house. Falconer adds that since he saw the creature, he has returned every single day to the same spot looking for evidence like footprints. Cryptozoologist Dave Shelly of the Skunk Ape Research Center also shares his story with Fox Nation. He has been tracking the skunk ape in the Everglades since he was in the 5th grade. At age 10, Shelly says he saw a hairy, pretty stocky creature standing 7 feet tall in tall grass. He adds whatever he saw wasn't as big as the Bigfoot who allegedly stalks the Pacific Northwest. But they don't really need to maintain the body weight down here, he says. We don't have the long winters. So the fact that a Bigfoot-type animal would be smaller is very realistic. The sighting piqued Shelly's interest, and he spent the next 30 years of his life looking for skunk ape. I was talking to people out in the woods, finding tracks, he says. So I knew something was there. In the early 2000s, Shelly captured a compelling video of the skunk ape, which he says has never been disputed. And that is the end of this article. Now this is a really cool one because there's not a whole lot about the skunk ape in the Everglades that is focused on in the media as far as Bigfoot sightings and stuff like that. Usually when you have Bigfoot sightings, what you're dealing with is Bigfoot, the big old Bigfoot from the Pacific Northwest. But there's actually multiple different types of Bigfoot. Different, I don't know if they're subspecies or if they're completely different species, just kind of similar. I don't know. But there's multiple. You have the Sasquatch everybody knows, which is in the Pacific Northwest. It's like 8 to 12 feet tall. It's gigantic. Then you have the skunk ape down in the Everglades in Florida. It's smaller. It's real thick, but it's not as tall. And it stinks really, really, really bad. That's why they call it skunk ape, because they say it smells like a skunk. And then you have the Texas Bigfoot, which is kind of in between the two. It's not as large as the one in the Pacific Northwest, but not as small as the skunk ape in the Everglades. And the thing that makes the Texas Bigfoot different is it's a lot more aggressive, where the one in the Pacific Northwest and the one in the Everglades will kind of stay away from you. I mean, you'll hear howls, you'll hear tree knocks, yells, stuff like that, and you might get a sighting every once in a while, but they kind of keep away from you. The one in Texas reportedly is actually aggressive, and it's a lot more dangerous. So those are the 3 main types that are here in America, but every country just about has this. In China, it's the Yeren. Up in Nepal and by Everest and all that, you're talking the Yeti, the abominable snowman. That's a form of Bigfoot. Russia has some amazing big feet, actually. The Bigfoot in Russia is capable of building structures because they'll find all these insane structures that are built out in the middle of nowhere. And you find that a little bit in the Pacific Northwest as well, where you have trees that are kind of knocked over and stacked. and arranged in such a way to make like structures, which is kind of cool. But the ones in Russia supposedly are building like complex type structures, which is very weird. So there's different species of this creature all over the world, which to me is a little bit more evidence that what we're dealing with here is potentially a brand new species that hasn't been discovered yet. It has anecdotally. We've got pictures, we've got prints, we've got hair, we've got that kind of stuff, but it hasn't been recognized by science yet as a living, breathing species of animal. But that's exactly what I think it is. Now, is it an animal, or is it human, or is it something in between? I happen to think that Bigfoot is actually Gigantopithecus, which was an ancient ancestor of human beings. It's like kind of a fork in the tree, so to speak. It's an offshoot. It's a hominoid species, but it's not us. Just like Neanderthal was a hominoid species, but it's not us. Homo floresiensis, the real actual hobbit that really lived, was a hominoid species, but it wasn't us. All of these things look like us. They're walk on two legs. They have brains. They can think, evolved brains. I mean, advanced brains, intelligence, but they're not us. They're different than us. I think that's what Bigfoot is. I think it's Gigantopithecus, and I think the different types of Bigfoot around the world are simply that species adapting and evolving to the area where it lives. So, like the article talked about, in Florida, it's a lot warmer. You don't have those tough winters. So Bigfoot does not have to be as large to survive. In Texas, it would make sense that Bigfoot would be more aggressive because Texas has more predators than pretty much anywhere in the United States, I think. I mean, there's so many things out there in Texas that are trying to eat you and kill you and hurt you all the time. And everything's gigantic in Texas. So it makes sense that you would have a larger and more aggressive animal there. The Pacific Northwest, a lot colder, rainy. You need all that mass. You need all that body weight to survive. So it makes sense that Bigfoot would be the largest of the ones. I would imagine that the Yeti is even bigger. I would imagine that it's thicker and probably, I don't know about taller, because taller doesn't really matter as much when you're trying to survive. The reason I think the Pacific Northwest one is so tall is because in that area, you had the redwoods and all that stuff. Everything was gigantic. So if this thing eats fruit and it eats like vegetables and stuff, right? Maybe it eats leaves, nuts, that kind of thing. It would have to be bigger to reach higher into the tree where that food would be because the trees were all big. So that makes sense. I know that redwoods don't produce fruit. I'm just saying as a general rule, trees are bigger. The animal would be bigger if that's what it feeds on. But the Yeti would absolutely be thick as hell because it's cold there where it lives. They call it the abominable snowman. So that tells you something. It's snowy there. It's really, really cold. So that's going to be a thick ass Bigfoot. If you look at the Neanderthal, it was way stockier than us. It was really thick and muscular and dense. Wasn't as smart and it wasn't as tall, but it was really thick. The reason it was really thick is because it lived in a very cold environment, and that denseness of muscle tissue and everything helped to keep its organs warm so it could survive. So that makes sense. I don't know why the Florida skunk ape would have to be so thick. That doesn't make sense unless it has something to do with the predators in the area, because you're talking Everglades, you're talking big ass snakes, you're talking gators, caiman, stuff like that. So you got some things in the Everglades that can absolutely mess you up. So maybe that's why it's thicker, is so that it can fight better or something. I don't know. So anyway, let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of the article. And also let me know about what you guys think of the different types of Bigfoot and all the stuff that I've discussed. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate your support, and I will catch you on the next one. Until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do I. Bye-bye.